Steel Assault is a retro-style action platformer game developed by Zenovia Interactive and published by Tribute Games. It's a throwback to a lot of great games in the Konami and Capcom libraries from the 16-bit and 8-bit eras, while throwing in a few unique things like being able to use a zip line while platforming. This title was originally a Kickstarter project that took a while to finish. So, how did it turn out? Let's jump in and find out. Steel Assault's story takes place after the fall of America, where most cities have been abandoned due to the massive amounts of radiation throughout the country. A general named Magnus Pierce has taken over and is ruling everything with an iron fist. He's made a lot of enemies, but he killed them all over time. A group of rebels have teamed up to try and stop this menace once and for all. Hans Albrecht, Sonya Singh, and our protagonist Taro Takahashi are the main characters here, and the player will use Taro on his journey to help both the Resistance and also take revenge on Magnus for killing his parents. Steel Assault controls much like a lot of the other action platformers throughout the years, with having a close range attack, a longer range attack, a jump, double jump, and a slide. Taro also can use a zipline that he can shoot in several different directions to help him reach places that he can't reach otherwise. He can also attack in 8 different directions, and he uses an electric whip to do so. His whip can also parry most enemy projectiles, and it can be upgraded slightly to have smaller projectiles shoot out at the end of the whip to increase his attack range even more. There are also health and shield power-ups that can be found in boxes. Hitting enemies with his close-range punch attack will power up his sub-weapon energy. To be honest, I'm not really sure what his sub-weapon is other than perhaps using power-up energy like the electric power-up. When Taro slides, he can't take damage, so that can be used in a lot of hairy situations to avoid enemy attacks. The control in this game feels really smooth and tight. My only complaint about any of it is that the zipline sometimes doesn't seem to work correctly. There are some platforms or areas where it seems like you should be able to use it, but you can't. It only attaches to surfaces that the dev decided to allow, so you can't just zipline everywhere. Also, there was one section in particular that was kind of frustrating my first time through, because the zipline didn't seem to want to work going up to a platform that I needed to get to quickly. Other than that though, the game felt really damn good. To make the game a little bit less frustrating for people, there are also a decent amount of checkpoints placed throughout the game, especially right before boss fights. This helps cut down on the time retreading through an area over and over and over just to have another crack at the boss. And since the game is just a bit easier than a lot of other action platforming games, it has an arcade mode where you can only get 1 life to clear the entire thing. So the game might take a good amount of practice in order to 100% complete it. Enemies are made up of either robots, people, or people inside of robots. And Magnus is definitely an equal opportunity employer, because there were for sure a lot of women screaming when I was destroying some of the robots, and there are also some female bosses. There are a fun variety of enemies. Some just stand still and shoot, while others take a more active approach like flying around or swooping in to attack the player. There are also some neat little sections like being able to man a Gatling gun that reminded me of the arcade version of Sunset Riders. The boss fights are also a huge highlight of the game. They're big, colorful, and very much fit the template of bosses from the Contra games as well as how Cyber Shadow did its boss fights. I really enjoyed most of them a lot, even if they were just a little bit too easy. I beat the final boss my first try, and it honestly kinda shocked me. There were plenty of mini-bosses too, so I never felt like the stages were boring at all. Graphics in the game are all pixel-based and reminded me of the soft look of an emulated Game Boy Advance title, where it kinda looks like there's a soft graphic filter on it. It has scrolling backgrounds and plenty of different things to look at, since the stages go through jungles, cityscapes, factories, and more. Steel Assault also runs in a 4:3 ratio, so playing this on a CRT would probably look wonderful. The game has an option for a CRT filter, but I forgot to try it out and see how it looks. There's also screen shake, but if you guys know anything about me, you'll know that I always turn that off. It's just not my thing. There's also an option to turn on a screen border if you don't like having blank space on the screen as well. So I will say one of the big highlights of the game for me is the music. Holy shit, this game has some rockin' tunes. It has a nice balance of going for an almost Guilty Gear style with driving rhythms complete with electric guitar riffing, Mega Man X style, or even a Streets of Rage style with great beats and just an all-around fun soundtrack. It's really damn good. There's even an option to change the music to all MIDI versions of the songs, which is a great addition. Just listen to the difference. So, would I recommend Steel Assault? Well, if you're a fan of these old school types of games with a very arcade feel, then absolutely. However, if you don't like short arcade-length games, this is a wait for a sale type of game. Personally, I don't feel ripped off in the slightest with the price because the game was a lot of fun, and I'll be playing it over and over again. However, it can be finished in just over a half an hour if you're used to these types of games, since this one's a lot easier than other games like Cyber Shadow and the old Castlevania and Contra games. There's still a good amount of fun to be had here, so if the game being short doesn't bother you, go ahead and grab this. Otherwise, I recommend waiting for a sale. Thank you all for watching. As always, it's been a blast talking about games and hearing your feedback. So if you liked the video, don't be afraid to leave a like and a comment about the game. Also, if you want to see more reviews, just click the subscribe button. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.